I found out my entire family held a secret vote about whether I was allowed to attend my own mother's recognition ceremony. And when I discovered how they decided, I realized I'd spent my whole life apologizing for taking up space in rooms I helped build. Maybe you've had someone make you feel small too. Someone who mistook your patience for permission. Someone who loved the version of you that stayed quiet, stayed useful, stayed out of the way. Tell me if you've ever had to choose between family and self-respect. It started the way most betrayals do, quietly, with a single, overlooked detail that unraveled everything. I was folding laundry in my apartment when the email arrived. Subject line, Mom's Lifetime Achievement Ceremony Final Guest List. I wasn't on it. My name had been there 2 weeks ago. I'd checked, I'd confirmed. I'd bought a dress I couldn't afford because this mattered. Because she mattered. Because for once, I wanted to stand beside my family and feel like I belonged there. I called Ariel first. She always answered on the second ring. This time, she let it go to voicemail. I called my father, straight to voicemail. I called my younger brother. He picked up, hesitated, then said he'd call me back. He never did. The silence was louder than any explanation they could have given me. I sat on my kitchen floor with my laptop, the blue light casting shadows across my hands, and I did what I'd always done when I needed answers. I searched. I found the shared family drive we used for event planning. The folder labeled Mom Ceremony. And inside, buried 3 levels deep, a document titled Final Attendee Discussion. My hands went cold. It was a message thread, dated 2 days ago. My father had written, "We need to finalize the guest list. Concerns have been raised about Lena's attendance." Ariel responded within minutes. "I think we all know she's been unpredictable lately. This is Mom's night. We can't risk her making it about herself." My brother, always the peacekeeper, always the coward, wrote, "Maybe we should just talk to her." Ariel again, "We tried talking. She doesn't listen. I vote we send regrets on her behalf and tell her the venue hit capacity." My father's reply came an hour later, agreed. "I'll handle the email." And he'd sent it from my account. A perfectly polite decline, apologizing for a scheduling conflict I didn't have, wishing Mom well, signed with my name. They forged my voice to erase me. I sat there until my legs went numb, until the sun set and my apartment filled with that particular kind of darkness that makes you feel like you're disappearing. I thought about every family dinner where I'd smiled through their jokes at my expense. Every holiday where I'd been the one to arrive early, stay late, clean up, smooth over. Every time I'd been the bridge between their egos and their explosions. I'd told myself it meant I was strong, that I was needed, that love looked different in every family, and ours was just complicated. But this wasn't complicated. This was cruelty with a paper trail. I didn't cry. I didn't call them back. I didn't write an angry message I'd regret. Instead, I opened my mother's research files, the ones she'd given me access to years ago when I was helping her organize her legacy work, the ones no one else knew I could still access. I started reading, and 3 hours later, I found something that made my blood turn to ice. A folder marked Private Ariel's Fellowship Application. Inside, a research proposal. Familiar language, familiar structure, familiar findings. Because I'd written them. 4 years ago, I'd spent 8 months developing preliminary research for a project my mother had been mentoring. I'd done the groundwork, the data collection, the analysis. I'd handed it over to Ariel because she said she needed help applying for a prestigious fellowship. Because I trusted her. Because she was my sister. She'd taken my work, changed the formatting, added her name, and submitted it as her own. She'd won the fellowship, built her entire career on it, became the golden child who made our family name shine. And I'd been erased from that story too. I sat in the dark, the laptop screen glowing like evidence, like proof, like a weapon I didn't know I'd been holding all along. My phone buzzed. A text from Ariel. "Hey, sorry I missed your call earlier. Everything okay?" I stared at those words, at the performance of concern, at the ease with which she could pretend. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a new document and wrote a single sentence. Burn it all down, but build something first. Then I closed my laptop, turned off my phone, and started packing. By the time they realized I was gone, I'd already decided how this story would end. I disappeared on a Tuesday, the kind of gray morning that makes you feel like the world is holding its breath. No goodbye text, no forwarding address. No explanation that would give them the satisfaction of thinking they mattered enough to deserve one. I'd spent 3 days methodically erasing myself from their reach, changed my number, closed the shared accounts, rerouted my mail, told my landlord I was leaving early, paid the penalty, didn't care. I packed only what fit in 2 suitcases because I wanted to feel light. Untethered. Impossible to find. The last thing I did before walking out was send myself that research folder, the one with Ariel's name on my work, the one that proved everything. Then I deleted my access to the family drive, cleared my browser history, and left my keys on the counter. I took a train to a city I'd never been to. Stayed in a hotel with thin walls and fluorescent lighting that made everything look temporary. And for the first time in my life, I didn't check my phone every 20 minutes waiting for someone to notice I was gone. It took them 4 days. The first message came from my brother. Short, confused. "Hey, where are you?" Dad's asking. Then, "Ariel, Lena, this is ridiculous. Call me back." Then my father, his words clipped and cold. "We need to discuss your recent behavior. This is unacceptable." I read them all, didn't respond to any of them, because I was done being the person who explained herself to people who never listened. I met Riley on day 6. She walked into the coffee shop where I'd been working on my laptop for hours, wearing a leather jacket that looked like it had survived a dozen stories, carrying the kind of confidence that comes from asking questions people don't want to answer. We'd grown up 3 blocks apart. She'd gone into investigative journalism. I'd gone into research. We'd lost touch the way people do when life pulls them in different directions. She recognized me immediately. "Lena Caldwell, I thought that was you." She sat down without asking, ordered black coffee, and studied me with the kind of attention that made me feel seen in a way I'd forgotten was possible. "You look different." "I am different." She didn't push. She just waited. And maybe it was because she'd always been the kind of person who asked the hard questions, or maybe it was because I was so tired of carrying everything alone. But I told her. I told her about the ceremony, the vote, the forged email, and then I told her about the research. Her expression shifted, went sharp, professional. "Do you have proof?" I pulled up the folder on my laptop and turned the screen toward her. She read in silence for a long time. When she finally looked up, her eyes were bright with something that looked like fury wrapped in focus. "This isn't just plagiarism. This is fraud. Career-ending fraud." "I know. And you've been sitting on this for 4 years?" "I didn't know for 4 years. I found out a week ago." She leaned back, processing. Then she said something that changed everything. "What if we didn't just expose it? What if we rebuilt it?" I didn't understand at first. She explained. My original research had been preliminary, promising but incomplete. Ariel had taken it, polished it, and presented it as finished work. But the foundations were still mine. The methodology. The insights. The questions no one else had thought to ask. Riley said, "You could take this further. Make it yours again. Make it better. Make it something she could never claim." I stared at her. At this person who'd known me when we were kids, riding bikes in the summer heat, who was now offering me a way back to myself that felt like more than revenge. It felt like resurrection. I started working the next day. Riley connected me with people, researchers who asked the right questions, data analysts who saw patterns I'd missed. And then, 3 weeks in, she introduced me to Evan Rivers. He was quiet in the way that people who've spent their lives listening tend to be. Sharp. Observant. He sat across from me in a glass-walled office that overlooked the city and listened to my pitch without interrupting once. When I finished, he asked one question. "Why now?" "Because I'm done being erased." He nodded slowly, then he said, "I'll fund it, all of it, but I want you to do something for me." "What?" "Build it under your own name, not anonymously, not hidden. I want the world to know who created this." I hesitated, because part of me still wanted to stay invisible, safe. But a louder part of me, the part that had been growing sharper every day since I left, said yes. The work consumed me. I rebuilt the research from the ground up, expanded it, refined it, turned it into something that didn't just answer the original questions, but asked new ones no one had considered. It became a framework. then a prototype, then a technology that people started noticing. Anonymous inquiries came in, requests for demos, invitations to present at conferences under a pseudonym I'd been using to protect the work until it was ready. And all the while, my family kept calling. The messages escalated, went from confused to angry to desperate. Ariel sent long texts about how much she missed me, how worried everyone was, how I was tearing the family apart. My father left voicemails that sounded like business negotiations. "We can resolve this. Come home and we'll talk." My brother just kept asking where I was, like geography was the problem. I didn't respond, not once, because I was learning something they'd never taught me. That silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Riley published a piece 6 months in. It wasn't about my family, it was about plagiarism in academic circles. About how systems protect the powerful and erase the invisible. About researchers whose work gets stolen and careers that get built on theft. It went viral. And somewhere, in a house I used to call home, I knew Ariel was reading it and wondering if I'd told. I hadn't, not yet. Because I was waiting for the right moment, the kind of moment that doesn't just expose the truth but makes it impossible to deny. That moment came 9 months after I disappeared. An email arrived in my anonymous work account, an invitation, the annual symposium where the best researchers in the field gathered, where reputations were made and legends were born. They wanted me to be the keynote speaker. They didn't know my real name. They only knew my work, the technology I'd built, the framework that was changing the field. I opened the symposium's schedule, and there, listed as the recipient of the Distinguished Career Achievement Award, was Ariel Caldwell. I sat very still. Riley called 2 minutes later. She'd seen the announcement too. "Are you going to do it?" I didn't answer right away, because I was thinking about that vote, about the forged email, about 4 years of living in someone else's shadow, about 9 months of building something they could never touch. And I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. "Yeah, I'm doing it." She laughed. It sounded like vindication, like the start of something inevitable. "I'm going to be front row when it happens." I started preparing. Not just the presentation, everything. I pulled together every piece of evidence, every email, every document, every timeline that proved the work was mine first. I didn't just want to tell the truth. I wanted to make it undeniable. Evan helped me build the presentation. Riley helped me craft the narrative. And slowly, methodically, we built something that felt less like revenge and more like reclamation. 2 weeks before the symposium, my family found out I was alive. I don't know how. Maybe someone recognized me from a professional photo that got circulated. Maybe someone connected the dots. But suddenly, the messages came flooding in. Different this time. Panicked. My father called 17 times in one day. Ariel sent an email with the subject line, "We need to talk. Now." My brother texted, "Please, just tell us you're okay." I let them sit in that panic for 3 days. Then I responded. One message. To all of them. "I'm fine. I'll see you soon." That was it. The silence that followed was louder than anything they'd said before. Because they knew, maybe they didn't know the details. Maybe they didn't know the evidence I had or the platform I'd built. But they knew something was coming. And they were right to be afraid. The night before the symposium, I stood in a hotel room that overlooked the venue where it would all happen. The city lights stretched out like a constellation of possibilities. And I thought about the girl who used to fold laundry on her kitchen floor, wondering why she was never enough. She would have been terrified of what I was about to do. But I wasn't her anymore. I was someone who'd learned that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming so undeniably yourself that the people who tried to erase you have no choice but to watch you rise. And tomorrow, they were going to see exactly who I'd become. They found me 3 days before the symposium, and the desperation in their voices sounded like the beginning of the end. My father called first. His tone had that practiced corporate smoothness, the voice he used when closing deals he knew were already lost. "Lena, we need to discuss this situation like adults." I almost laughed, because nothing about the way they'd treated me had ever been adult. It had been calculated, cruel, coordinated. I didn't respond, just let the voicemail play out while I reviewed my presentation slides one more time. Ariel tried next. Her message was long, winding, full of the kind of emotional manipulation she'd perfected over decades. I know you're angry. I know I hurt you. But please, can we just talk? Face to face? There are things you don't understand. Context you're missing. I never meant for any of this to happen. The thing about liars is they always think you don't understand. They mistake your silence for confusion instead of what it actually is. Clarity. My brother's message was the shortest, and somehow the most honest. I don't know what's happening, but I'm scared. Please don't do whatever you're planning to do. At least he was honest about his fear. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I met Riley at a restaurant with floor-to-ceiling windows that made the whole city feel like it was watching. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were printouts, articles, photos, a timeline we'd built together that showed everything. This is enough to bury them. I know. Are you ready for what happens after? I looked at her, at this person who'd shown up when I needed someone to believe me, who'd helped me rebuild something I didn't even know I'd lost. I've been ready since the moment I found that vote. She smiled. It was sharp, knowing. Good, because they're going to try to stop you. She was right. That night, my father showed up at my hotel. I don't know how he found me. Maybe he hired someone. Maybe he pulled strings. Maybe desperation makes people resourceful in ways integrity never does. I was in the lobby when I saw him. Stood there in his expensive suit that probably cost more than my first year of grad school, looking exactly like the man who'd taught me that love was something you earned by being useful. He saw me, started walking over. I could have run, could have disappeared into the elevator, could have avoided the confrontation. But I didn't, because I wanted him to see who I'd become without his approval. Lena. Dad. We stood there, two strangers who shared blood and nothing else. We need to talk. No, we don't. His jaw tightened. You don't understand what you're doing. I understand perfectly. You're going to ruin this family. I shook my head slowly. You already did that. I'm just making sure everyone else knows. He stepped closer, lowered his voice to that dangerous register he used when he wanted you to know you'd crossed a line. If you do this, there's no coming back. Do you understand that? No reconciliation, no forgiveness, you'll lose us. I looked at him, really looked at him. At this man who'd raised me to believe that family was everything, while treating me like I was nothing. I already lost you, years ago. I just didn't realize it until you took the choice away from me. Something flickered in his eyes. Maybe regret, maybe fear, maybe just the calculation of a man who knew he was losing control. How much? What? How much do you want? To keep quiet, to walk away, name your price. And there it was, the confirmation that he'd never seen me as a daughter. Just another transaction, another problem that could be solved with money. I'm not for sale. Everyone has a price. Not me, not anymore. I walked away, didn't look back, didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me shake. But I did shake. In the elevator, in my room, sitting on the edge of the bed, with my hands pressed against my knees. Because hearing him reduce everything to money made me realize how deep the rot went, how completely they'd misunderstood who I was. They thought I wanted revenge. What I wanted was freedom. Ariel tried the next morning. She was waiting outside the symposium venue when I arrived for the tech rehearsal, wearing designer clothes that screamed success, hair perfect, makeup flawless, the golden child in full armor. Lena, please. I kept walking. She followed. Lena, stop. Just give me 5 minutes. I stopped, turned, looked at her the way you look at strangers who think they know you. You don't get to ambush me into forgiveness. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking you to think about what you're doing. I have thought about it. For 9 months, while I rebuilt everything you stole. Her face shifted, went from pleading to defensive in a heartbeat. I didn't steal anything. You gave me that research. You said I could use it. For your fellowship application, not to build your entire career on, not to claim as your own. You're twisting this. I'm telling the truth. That's not the same thing. She stepped closer. Her voice dropped, became urgent, almost afraid. If you do this, you destroy me. Do you understand that? Everything I've built, everything I've worked for, gone. I felt something shift inside me, a weight I'd been carrying without realizing it. The weight of caring more about her feelings than my own truth. Good. Her eyes widened. Lena, you voted to erase me, Ariel. You forged my name. You stole my work. And you did it all while pretending to be the person who loved me most. So yeah, I hope this destroys you. Because you deserve it. I walked away before she could respond. Inside the venue, Evan was waiting. He'd flown in that morning, hadn't told me he was coming. Just showed up because he knew I might need someone in my corner. You okay? I nodded. Better than okay. He studied me, then smiled. You look different than the person I met 9 months ago. I am different. Good. The world needs more people who stop apologizing for taking up space. The tech rehearsal was smooth. My presentation loaded perfectly. The timing was right. Everything was ready. Except me. Because standing on that empty stage, looking out at rows of seats that would be filled tomorrow with people who'd shaped my field, I felt the full weight of what I was about to do. This wasn't just about exposing Ariel. It was about reclaiming something I'd let them take from me. My voice, my work, my right to exist without permission. Riley found me after the rehearsal, sitting in the empty auditorium, staring at the stage like it might disappear if I looked away. She sat next to me. Didn't say anything, just waited. I'm scared. Good. That means it matters. What if no one believes me? They'll believe you. You have the evidence. You have the timeline. You have the work. They'll believe you. What if they do believe me and nothing changes? Then you'll still have done the right thing, and that's not nothing. I looked at her, at this person who'd helped me find my way back to myself. Thank you for everything. She shook her head. You did this. I just showed up. That night, my brother called. Lena, please, don't do this. Why not? Because Ariel's falling apart. Dad's talking to lawyers. Mom doesn't know what's happening, and we can't tell her because it'll break her heart. Maybe she should know. Maybe everyone should know. You're going to destroy this family. The family destroyed itself. I'm just refusing to keep pretending it didn't. He was quiet for a long time. Then, what did we do that was so unforgivable? And that's when I knew. He really didn't understand. None of them did. You erased me. You voted on whether I was allowed to exist in my own family, and decided I wasn't. You took my work and let Ariel build an empire on it. You treated me like I was disposable. And the worst part? You did it all while acting like you loved me. We do love you. No. You loved the version of me that stayed quiet, the one who made you look good, the one who never asked for credit. But that person doesn't exist anymore. I hung up. The next morning, I woke up at dawn. The city was still dark, quiet, like the world was holding its breath before something inevitable. I got dressed slowly, a simple black suit, professional, powerful. The kind of outfit that says I belong here without needing to announce it. Riley met me for coffee. We didn't talk much, just sat there in comfortable silence. The kind that only exists between people who understand that some moments don't need words. Evan texted, front row, left side, I'll be there. And then it was time. I walked into that venue with my head up and my evidence ready, and my heart beating like a war drum. The room was packed. Researchers I'd admired for years. Colleagues. Strangers who'd never heard my name but knew my work. And there, 3 rows back, I saw them. My father, stone-faced, corporate armor on. Ariel, pale, gripping the armrest like she might fall. My brother, looking lost, looking young. They'd come thinking they could stop me, or shame me, or make me remember I was supposed to be the quiet one. But I wasn't quiet anymore. I was the person they'd tried to erase. And I was about to show them exactly what happens when you underestimate someone who has nothing left to lose. The moderator introduced me, my anonymous name, my work, my achievements. And then I walked onto that stage. The lights were bright, hot, made everything feel surreal and hyperreal at the same time. I looked out at the audience, at hundreds of faces waiting to hear what I had to say, and I smiled, because I finally understood something they never had. The truth doesn't need permission to exist. It just needs someone brave enough to speak it. The standing ovation started before I'd finished my last sentence, and in that moment I understood what it felt like to be seen. Not noticed, not tolerated. Seen. I stood at that podium with the evidence still displayed on the screen behind me, the timeline, the documents. The proof that the research everyone knew as Ariel Caldwell's breakthrough had started as mine. That I hadn't just contributed to it, I'd created it. And I'd done it without saying her name once. I didn't have to. Because the people in that room weren't stupid. They'd connected the dots the moment I showed them the dates. The university affiliation, the fellowship timeline, the signature methodology that had made her famous. They knew. And the sound of their applause felt like vindication wrapped in thunder. I looked out at the audience, at researchers standing, at people I'd admired for years nodding with something that looked like respect, at Riley in the front row with tears streaming down her face and a smile that said we did it. And then I looked at row 3. My father sat frozen, face like granite, hands gripping the armrest so hard his knuckles had gone white. My brother had his head in his hands, and Ariel's seat was empty. She'd left halfway through my presentation. I'd seen her stand, seen her stumble toward the exit like someone who'd forgotten how to walk, seen the way people watched her go with dawning recognition. The moderator approached the podium, asked if I had time for questions. I nodded. The first question came from a woman in the back, a professor whose work I'd cited in my research. How long did it take you to rebuild this? 9 months. From the ground up. And you did this while dealing with the theft of your original work? I did this because of the theft. Because I wanted to prove that the work was always mine. That it didn't belong to anyone else just because they put their name on it first. The applause that followed felt like solidarity. More questions came, technical ones, methodological ones. Questions about the future applications of what I'd built. And I answered each one with the kind of clarity that only comes from knowing your work inside out. Because it was mine, every piece of it, every insight, every breakthrough. And no one could take that from me again. The session ended. People swarmed forward, wanting to shake my hand, exchange contact information, talk about collaborations. I smiled, thanked them, felt overwhelmed and powerful and terrified all at once. Evan found me in the chaos, didn't say anything, just put a hand on my shoulder and squeezed. The kind of gesture that says, I'm proud of you without needing words. Riley pulled me into a hug that felt like coming home. You were incredible. I was honest. Same thing. We left the auditorium together, walked into the bright afternoon sunlight that made everything feel too real, too sharp, like I'd been living in a dream for 9 months. And had just woken up to find it was all true. My phone had been on silent. When I turned it back on, it exploded with notifications. Missed calls, texts, emails, all from my family. I scrolled through them. Watched the progression from confusion to panic to fury to desperation. My father, call me immediately. My brother, what have you done? Ariel, you destroyed me. I hope you're happy. And then, buried among the anger, one more message. From a number I didn't recognize. This is David, Ariel's husband. We need to talk. There's something you need to know about what she did last week. I stared at that message for a long time. Riley noticed. What is it? Ariel's husband wants to talk. About what? I don't know. She studied my face. Are you going to call him? I thought about it. About whether I wanted to know. About whether there was anything left to uncover that could matter more than what I'd already exposed. Yeah, I am. I called him from a quiet corner of the hotel lobby. He answered on the first ring. Lena. David. His voice sounded tired, defeated, like he'd been carrying something heavy for too long. Thank you for calling. I wasn't sure you would. What do you want? He was quiet for a moment. Then, I want to tell you what Ariel did, what she tried to do, because you deserve to know just how far she was willing to go. My stomach tightened. Okay. Last week, she found out you were the keynote speaker. She didn't know it was you at first, just knew someone was presenting research that sounded too similar to hers. She got scared, started digging, and when she figured out it was you, she panicked. I waited. She tried to get your presentation canceled. Called the symposium organizers. Told them you'd stolen her work. Said you were unstable. That you'd been harassing the family. She even threatened legal action, if they let you speak. The words landed like stones. Cold, heavy, undeniable. They investigated? Of course they investigated. They asked for evidence. Documentation. Proof of her claims. And she couldn't provide any. Because there wasn't any. So they told her if she continued making false accusations, they'd have to remove her from the program entirely. I closed my eyes. Tried to process the level of desperation that would drive someone to do that. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm tired of watching her destroy people to protect herself. Because I've been married to her for 6 years and I'm just now realizing I don't actually know who she is. And because you deserved better than what she did to you. I appreciate that. There's more. What? She's been calling everyone she knows in the field, trying to discredit you before you could present. Spreading rumors that your research is fabricated. That you're seeking revenge for some imagined slight. She's been doing this for days. But it didn't work. No, it didn't work. Because your research speaks for itself. And because people in this field value truth more than they value protecting someone's reputation. I felt something shift. Not anger, not even vindication, just a deep, bone-tired sadness. Thank you for telling me. Lena, I'm sorry. For not seeing it sooner. For not stopping her. For being part of the system that let her get away with this for so long. You're not responsible for her choices. Maybe not, but I could have questioned them, and I didn't, so I'm sorry. He hung up. I sat there in that lobby with my phone in my hand and my mind racing through every interaction I'd had with Ariel over the years. Every time she'd smiled while undermining me. Every time she'd played the victim while being the villain. Every time I'd wondered if I was the problem. I wasn't the problem. I'd never been the problem. Riley found me 20 minutes later, took one look at my face and sat down without asking. What happened? I told her. About the calls, the rumors, the attempts to get my presentation canceled. She listened, and when I finished, she said something that cut through all the noise. She knew she was going to lose, so she tried to make sure you lost too. That's not strategy, that's desperation. She's not going to recover from this. No, she's not. I should feel good about that. Should you? I looked at her. At this person who'd helped me rebuild my life without ever asking me to be anything other than honest. I don't know what I feel. That's okay. You don't have to have it figured out right now. We sat in silence for a while, watched people move through the lobby, watched the world continue like nothing had changed, even though everything had. My phone buzzed again. Another message. This time from my mother. Lena, sweetheart, I don't understand what's happening. Your father won't tell me. Ariel won't answer her phone. Please call me. I'm worried. I stared at that message, at the mom who'd raised me to be kind, to be fair, to always give people the benefit of the doubt. She didn't know. She'd been the one person in my family who'd never treated me like I was disposable, and she had no idea what they'd done. I called her. She answered immediately. Lena? Hi, Mom. What's going on? Everyone's acting strange. Your father locked himself in his office. Ariel came home in tears. No one will tell me anything. I took a breath. Then I told her. I told her about the vote, the forged email, the stolen research, the 9 months I'd spent rebuilding what they'd tried to take from me, the presentation, the proof, everything. She listened without interrupting. And when I finished, the silence on the other end was so complete, I thought she'd hung up. Mom? Her voice, when it came, was small, broken. They did that to you? Yes. And they didn't tell me? No. Oh, Lena, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. If I'd known... It's not your fault. I should have noticed. Should have seen. They were careful. They hid it well. She was crying now. I could hear it. The kind of tears that come from discovering the people you trusted most aren't who you thought they were. What are you going to do now? I'm going to move forward, build the life I started, work with people who value me, and I'm not going to apologize for it. Good. You shouldn't. You shouldn't apologize for a single thing. We talked for another hour about everything and nothing, about the research, about the future, about how some families protect their children and others protect their image. Before we hung up, she said, "I'm proud of you. I don't know if I've said that enough, but I am. I'm so proud." Those words meant more than the standing ovation. That evening, the symposium hosted a reception. I almost didn't go. Almost stayed in my hotel room and let the weight of the day settle. But Riley convinced me. "You earned this. Go claim it." So I went. The room was full of people who wanted to talk to me, collaborate with me, invest in my work. I moved through conversations feeling like I was floating, like I'd stepped into a life I hadn't known I was allowed to want. And then I saw her, Ariel, standing in the corner by the windows, alone, holding a drink she wasn't drinking, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. She saw me see her. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she started walking toward me, slow, hesitant, like she wasn't sure I'd let her get close. I could have walked away, could have turned my back, could have given her the same treatment she'd given me. But I didn't, because I wasn't her. She stopped a few feet away, close enough to talk, far enough to respect the boundary. Lena. Ariel. Her eyes were red, swollen. She looked like someone who'd been crying for hours and had nothing left. "I know you hate me. I don't hate you. I don't feel anything for you anymore. And that's worse." She flinched. "I just came to say I'm sorry. I know it doesn't fix anything. I know it's too late. But I needed to say it. Why did you do it?" She looked away, out the window at the city lights, at the world that would never see her the same way again. "Because I was scared. Because you were always smarter than me and I couldn't stand it. Because I thought if I could just be successful enough, I'd finally feel like I deserved to exist. But it was never enough. No matter what I achieved, I still felt empty. So I took more. And more. Until there was nothing left to take." That's not an excuse. I know. It's just the truth. We stood there in silence. Two people who used to be sisters. Who used to share secrets and dreams, and a belief that family meant something. "Goodbye, Ariel." She nodded, like she'd been expecting it, like she knew this was the last time we'd speak. I walked away. And this time, I didn't look back. Because some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. They're meant to burn so you can finally see the other side. The contract arrived 6 weeks after the symposium, and I signed it in a coffee shop where no one knew my name. It was a global partnership, the kind of deal that changes everything. Funding, resources, a team of researchers who wanted to build on what I'd created, recognition that couldn't be stolen or erased or voted away. I read through every clause twice, made sure my name was on every page, made sure the intellectual property protections were airtight, made sure that this time no one could take what was mine. Then I signed. Riley was with me. She'd flown in just to be there, said she wouldn't miss it for anything. "How does it feel?" I looked up from the papers, at this person who'd helped me find my way back to myself when I'd forgotten the path even existed. "It feels like the beginning." Good, because it is. We celebrated with coffee and pastries that tasted like freedom, talked about the future, about the research, about all the things I could build now that I wasn't building them in secret. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of being seen. The fallout from the symposium had been swift, brutal, exactly what they deserved. Ariel's fellowship was revoked. An investigation was launched into her research. Every paper she'd published was being scrutinized. Her university put her on administrative leave pending the outcome. The career she'd built on stolen work was collapsing under the weight of truth. My father's company took a hit too, because once people started looking, they found things. Financial irregularities, cover-ups, evidence that he'd used company resources to protect Ariel's fraud. The board forced him into early retirement, called it stepping down. Everyone knew better. My brother reached out once, sent a long email about how he hadn't known, how he wished he'd stood up for me, how he was sorry for everything. I read it, didn't respond, because some apologies come too late to matter. But my mother, she called every week. We talked about small things, about her garden, about the research, about how she was planning to leave my father once the legal mess settled. She said, "I spent 30 years building a life with someone I thought I knew. Turns out I was married to a stranger." "I'm sorry, Mom." "Don't be. I should have seen it. Should have protected you better. But I didn't. And I have to live with that. You're seeing it now. That counts for something." She paused. Then, "Are you happy, Lena?" I thought about it. About happiness. About whether it was possible to be happy after everything that had happened. "I'm free, and that's better than happy." The research took off faster than I'd expected. Within 3 months, I had partnerships with universities across the world, invitations to speak at conferences, requests for interviews. People wanted to know the story, wanted to understand how I'd rebuilt everything from nothing. I told them pieces of it, the parts that mattered professionally, the parts about perseverance and innovation and refusing to give up. But I never told them the whole truth, never mentioned the vote, never named Ariel, never detailed exactly how deep the betrayal went. Because I didn't need to destroy them anymore. They destroyed themselves the moment the truth came out. Evan became more than an investor. He became a mentor, a friend, someone who understood that success without integrity was just another kind of failure. We met for coffee once a month, talked about the work, about the future, about how to build something that would last. One afternoon, sitting in his office with the city sprawling below us, he asked, "Do you ever regret it?" "Regret what?" "Exposing them, walking away, choosing this path instead of trying to fix the family." I looked out at the skyline, at all those buildings full of people living lives I'd never know, making choices I'd never understand. No, I don't regret it, because I finally understand something I didn't before. What's that? Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when you need them. And my real family showed up when it mattered. He nodded, smiled, looked like he'd been waiting for me to figure that out. Good. Because we've got big plans for you. The recognition came in waves. Awards, honors, invitations to join boards and committees. People wanted my name attached to their projects. My expertise validated their work. It was everything Ariel had wanted, everything she'd stolen my research to achieve. And I'd earned it on my own. 6 months after the symposium, I gave my first major keynote address at a different conference. This time, everyone knew who I was, knew the story, knew what I'd overcome. I walked onto that stage with confidence I'd built myself, spoke about the research with clarity that came from owning every word. And when I finished, the applause felt different than it had before. It wasn't just appreciation for the work. It was recognition of the journey. After the talk, a young woman approached me, graduate student, early 20s. Nervous energy, radiating off her like heat. "Dr. Caldwell?" "That's me. I just wanted to say thank you. For what you did. For speaking up. For not staying quiet when it would have been easier." I studied her face. Saw something familiar in her eyes. Something that looked like recognition. "Why does it matter to you?" She hesitated. Then, "Because I had someone steal my work too, last year, and I didn't know what to do about it. I thought if I said something, no one would believe me. But then I saw what you did, and I realized I didn't have to stay silent." What happened? I reported it, filed a complaint, gathered evidence, and last month, they ruled in my favor. The person who stole my work was expelled. And I got credit for what was always mine. Her eyes were bright, fierce, full of the kind of fire that comes from fighting for yourself and winning. "I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you too." She walked away, and I stood there thinking about how many people might have seen my story and found their own courage. How many voices might have been reclaimed because I'd refused to stay quiet. That mattered more than any award. Riley published a feature article 6 months in. Not about my family. Not about the plagiarism. About the broader problem of research theft. About how systems protect the powerful and silence the vulnerable. About how change happens when people stop accepting injustice as inevitable. It won awards, sparked conversations, led to policy changes at universities across the country. She sent me a copy with a note, "None of this happens without you." I wrote back, "None of this happens without us." Because it was true. I hadn't done this alone. I'd had Riley's investigative skills, Evan's funding, my mother's support, the community of researchers who'd believed me when they could have looked away. I'd learned that strength wasn't about standing alone. It was about knowing when to ask for help. A year after the symposium, I received an unexpected email. It was from the organization that had given Ariel her award, the one she was supposed to receive the night I gave my keynote. They were rescinding it. Not because I'd asked them to, not because of public pressure, but because their investigation had confirmed what I'd shown them, that the work wasn't hers, that she'd built her career on fraud, that the award had been given under false pretenses. They wanted to know if I'd accept it instead. I stared at that email for a long time, thought about how much younger me would have wanted this, would have seen it as validation, as proof that I deserved to be recognized. But I didn't need it anymore. I wrote back, "Thank you for the offer, but I don't want an award that was meant for someone else. Even if the work was originally mine, I'd rather be recognized for what I'm building now, not what was stolen from me then." They responded an hour later, "We understand, and for what it's worth, we think that's the right choice." So did I. 2 years after everything changed, I stood in a laboratory I'd designed, with a team I'd built, working on research that would change the field. It was early morning, the kind of quiet that only exists before the world wakes up. Sunlight streaming through the windows, coffee cooling on my desk. Everything exactly where it should be. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Thinking of you today. So proud of who you've become." I smiled. Typed back, "Thank you for being there." She responded immediately, "Always." I looked around the lab, at the equipment, the whiteboards covered in equations, the evidence of work that belonged to me and no one else. This was the life I'd built from the ashes of the one they'd tried to burn down. And it was better than anything I'd imagined, because I'd learned something they never understood. You can't erase someone who refuses to disappear. You can't steal from someone who knows their own worth. You can't destroy someone who's already learned how to rebuild. I'd walked away from a family that treated love like a transaction, from people who valued image over integrity, from a life that required me to be small so they could feel big. And I'd walked toward something better, toward people who valued truth, toward work that mattered, toward a version of myself I'd been too afraid to become when I was busy trying to earn their approval. The girl who used to fold laundry on her kitchen floor, wondering why she wasn't enough, would barely recognize me now. And that was exactly the point. I'd outgrown the person they'd tried to keep me as. I'd become someone they could never have imagined. Someone who didn't need their permission to exist. Someone who'd learned that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building a life so full of purpose and meaning and joy that the people who tried to erase you become irrelevant. I picked up my coffee, turned back to my work, started writing notes for the presentation I'd give next week at a conference in Geneva. And I realized something that made me smile. I wasn't thinking about them anymore. Wasn't wondering if they regretted what they'd done. Wasn't checking to see if they were watching. Wasn't measuring my success against their failure. I'd moved on. Not because I'd forgiven them. Not because time had healed the wound. But because I'd built something so much bigger than their betrayal that it didn't define me anymore. I was defined by what I'd created, by who I'd become, by the people I'd helped and the work I'd done and the life I'd chosen. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The sun climbed higher, the lab filled with morning light, my team started arriving, coffee brewing, conversations beginning, the sound of people doing work that mattered. I looked around at all of it, at this life I'd built from nothing but determination and truth. And I finally understood what freedom felt like. It felt like coming home to a place you'd built yourself. It felt like standing in your own light without apology. It felt like knowing that no one could ever take from you what you'd earned with your own hands. Some stories end with revenge. Mine ended with something better. It ended with me realizing I didn't need to destroy them to win. I just needed to build something they could never touch. And I had.